we are so happy that you are here for this session. This is the first time we've done something like this, and so I'm excited about it. I always find it to be a real privilege, a real honor to get to speak to leaders. I think all of us in some way, shape, or form, that's what we are. We're leaders on the journey, and maybe you don't lead in church per se, from a staff role, but you might be a mom, or you might be a teacher, or you might have an organization. And so leadership principles, they translate so often. And I think as the leader gets better, the organization gets better. As the leader gets better, everybody gets better. And so one of the things at VOUS Conference that we're really working on more than ever is that we want to make sure that we're creating content and spaces to talk to next generation leaders. In fact, next conference, as we keep saying that, I'm gonna keep pushing it because there's a lot of leaders in here that you represent more people. I just encourage you to get registered to be a part of it, because I really believe that as VOUS Conference continues to take shape, it's not just gonna be a place that people know that we passionately worship God, but it's also gonna be a place where next generation leaders are galvanized and empowered to step into the marketplace, step into the church, and really change the world. And so next year, we're gonna have a lot more spaces to be niche. My goal with this session is that we get often just through email, so many people asking us questions about our organization, about our church. I'm one of these kind of people. I'm not one of these like negative people. Like I like things like social media. I actually like the internet. Don't get me wrong. The internet can like take you all the way to the worst places, but it can also create portals for some of the best places. And so with just this thing called an iPhone, so many people have joined into the story of VOUS Church, and they've watched from afar, and so they've been curious. And so I thought today, for about an hour here, this is not like a real scripted session. I want to take us through what we call our staff values that are very important to me. I've got some of our staff, some servant leaders up here. Our church is still servant leader led. Well over 1,000 people would call themselves servant leaders at VOUS Church. Come on, let's give God praise for that. And I think that's a picture of a healthy church. A healthy church is not the gifts of a couple people, but it's the sacrifice of a lot of people. And what I want to do is I'm going to kind of teach here and there, and then they don't even really know, but I'm going to draw on some of these guys. I'll introduce them as we go. And then judging upon time, I want to open up questions, really leadership, directed questions. We're not going to do like counseling sessions about if you should marry that guy, or, you open up for questions like, I've been dating this girl and I just don't know. It's like, yeah, let's talk offline. But maybe be thinking leadership. And it's not because we have all the answers, but I think that we learn together. Our church started, we announced our church September of 2014. I served for many years with my dad, at Trinity Church in Miami Gardens. In September of 2014, we made a big, huge announcement. And part of our conviction as we announced VOUS Church, I'd gotten a word from a friend of mine, a leader, Louis Giglio. He said two things to me. He said, this is what I would tell you. I would say, don't ask anybody to go with you. And anybody you don't think should go with you, let them know they cannot go with you. And it was kind of this strong language, but nonetheless, we made this announcement September of 2014. And really, as we made the announcement, we didn't know what was gonna happen next. We literally took a year from announcement to launch. How many know there's a big difference between announcing something and actually launching something? There's a big difference between an idea and then actually executing the idea. What happens to a lot of leaders, they operate in this space called ideation without execution. It only leads to frustration. And so at some point you announce something. Well, then what took place for us, one of the best things that started to happen is that we felt many times that we were being delayed. We wanted to launch sooner, but because of venues, because of locations, we could not launch. But what we did not know is that God was shaping us. God was developing us, and it was in the wait that amazing things took place, because we started to define who we were. We would spend hours together. I'm looking at Sam and Luke up here and Jerry, some of our key leaders from the very get-go. We used to sit at our house and we put on music and we would look at different design books and say, all right, what is the look of VOUS Church? And we were serious about it, man. We were passionate. We'd play our favorite records and we were just dreaming up. And you might not think that's a holy moment, but for us, it was a really holy moment. And what I found in that space of the waiting, and this is what I want you to get today, is that leaders that are expecting God to do something great, they don't waste a moment. Right. And I wrote it down this way in my journal. It's that expectation always leads to preparation. So if you're not preparing for it, I think we got a slide. Hopefully, do we have that? I'm already off on my notes. It's okay. I think we got notes. We don't have notes. It's all right. If you're not preparing for something, it's probably because you're not actually believing God to do it. We moved into our office space about a year ago, And right from the get-go, I said, it's not, oh, there it is, look at that. Give somebody in the back a big round of applause. That's awesome. I think someone just manually did that. It was awesome. But this has been a big value point for us, that if we're expecting God to do something, we have to start to prepare for it. Jerry's back here, and we'll meet Jerry in a little bit. She's a key leader in our church. But I remember when we first, I remember I told the team after a year of us, really 2 years of us hanging out, all of us, I said, we got this office space. And Jerry said, Pastor Rich, this is after 1 year of launch phase, 1 year of being in church. She said, Pastor Rich, I just want you to know, I'm ready to design the entire office space. I've got all the Pinterest boards, because from the very first day we met in your apartment over Olive Garden with 12 people, I started storing references, because I knew there would come a day that God would give us not an office, a headquarters, praise God. And I wanted to be ready to design it. And as she spoke that to me, it's something unlocked in me, that when I'm expecting something, I prepare for it. So maybe you're not leading at the level you want to, but you should start preparing right now today. You should start sharpening your saw right now today, so that God would do something in your life. Amen? All right, so here we go. So we got 7 values for our staff, and we call these our aspirational values. These are things that we are longing to be. And the first one is this thought that everything on our staff and our team is that we want to make it better. Everyone say, make it better.
Make it better.
Oh, come on, say it louder. Say, make it better.
Make it better.
As leaders, our first pursuit on the VOUS church staff is everything we do, we want to make it better. And every value has a little blurb attached. So I want to read this blurb to you. Listen to this. What am I doing personally to help us improve organizationally? My role, no matter the job description, is to make the organization better. Here we go. I won't do tomorrow what I can do today. I choose to put my full weight down. Imitate, innovate, evaluate, repeat.
Great.
So this is our first value as a team, and everyone up here, they could chat on this and how we do this in a practical way. But you want to create a culture of people that are constantly wanting to improve. It's progress over perfection. In fact, you'll never ever be perfect, but you can continue to progress. And what I say to our team all the time is, you don't have to be the best today, you just gotta get better today. So here's the good news. All of my weaknesses right now that you see, and that you're aware of all of my weaknesses and my shortcomings, the good news is who I am next year is not gonna be the same guy. I'm committed to growing, I'm committed to leaning in, I'm committed to progressing. I wanna make things better. I think the Church of Jesus Christ ought to be the most creative place in the planet. We ought to be leading in every sphere of life. People ought to be raised up, equipped, and challenged. And when churches operate in a sloppy way, it does nothing to advance the gospel. So if you're a church leader here right now today, you need to get over yourself. You need to take on, I want a culture of improvement. And the only way you can have a culture of improvement is if you're okay with the friction. Isn't it amazing that the scripture says that iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another? It's really fun to quote, but have you ever considered what that looks like? It looks like us bumping together, and it looks like us confronting each other and say, you got more in the tank. And until you put a demand on your gift in private, you'll never ever see the world put a demand on your gift in public. And what we're committed to doing at VOUS Church is to making things better. And so it's our first value. And I just, maybe Sam Gultieri, I'm gonna go to you. Can we get a mic? Sam is incredible. Sam and his wife, Angel, helped us launch VOUS Church. And Sam right now is looking after a lot of our creative areas, our marketing, our communications, has lots of teams, photo team, social media team right now is coming under his care. He works on a lot of the promo stuff. Did you guys like that promo for 2019? Come on, can we just give God praise? I like that kind of stuff. Sam, practically speaking, because I think we got church leaders in here really quick, what are a couple of things that we're doing at VOUS that you would say, not just to give a great point, but to systematically make things better?
Right, so having a culture of making things better starts with decisions inside of you.
Is that microphone on? I love that though. Your voice is gorgeous. Check.
Check 1, 2.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. It was on. So having a culture of making things better starts within yourself. It's a decision that you are going to be open to feedback and that you're going to be willing to make changes. At VOUS, some of the things that we do practically to create systems around that is we do something that's called a SWOT. Right. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we'll SWOT or evaluate every single event that we do. If it's worth doing, it's worth evaluating.
There you go.
And I think that
Hold on, key line, if it's worth doing, it's worth evaluating. People ask us this question all the time. Well, how often should I evaluate? We always say, evaluate as often the event occurs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like, if you wanna know a frequency level, it's not like, we evaluate once a month. No, if you have a service, you should evaluate it every week.
Yeah.
Just so anything that you do, the frequency of it, I would just evaluate that pace. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Absolutely. And so one of the ways that we bring, as many voices around it, we find that communication is very important. And if something's worth evaluating, and you have to communicate that to the right people. So we use programs on a practical level. You want to get the very baseline of what we do. We use a program called Base Camp, where we have, all of our servant leaders. We have different groups set up with, different privileges. And so we'll SWAT within the different departments so that the right people in those departments can access that feedback and make those improvements right away. So as we're bringing in that feedback's getting communicated to the right people at the right times. Feedback also happens on the real-time level. If you notice something that's wrong or can be improved, well, say it. We're gonna go to that person, we're gonna shoot them a text, we're gonna jump on the Slack channel, whatever it is, we're gonna get it across so that the communication is being made. And we're making every effort as possible to make sure that we're recognizing that things can be better, set that bar higher than what you currently are seeing, and then create a plan, create a method to get there.
It's beautiful. It's really good. Give Sam a big round of applause. I like that. So we don't just say we want to make it better. We actually put a system attached to it, because until you have a structure and a system, all you got is just some good idea. You just got a dream, but you need to attach something to it. And so a SWOT analysis, that's really, really easy. There's lots of things you can do, other tools, but SWOT just stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So everything we do after this session is over, a group of people that put this session on will go, that was what was strong, that what was weak. Rich wore the wrong shirt and he yells too much in a leadership panel. And they'll talk about opportunities. How could we let more people know? How can we talk to more people's real needs? What are the threats? The threats are that some people paid for lunch today and they didn't get a lunch, and now they hate VOUS conference. They're never coming back because all we are a bunch of liars. I don't know. But they'll go through that and we'll talk about it. That's just called SWOT analysis. All right, number 2, I want you to write this one down. At VOUS, on our staff, as leaders, what we say is we take it personally. Yeah. Everyone say, take it personally. Take it personally. No, come on, say, take it personally. Take it personally. All right, listen to this. I love this. This is how it says here on the screen, this little blurb. It says, how am I personally engaged in our mission and vision? How am I putting into practice that which I'm encouraging others to participate in? We can't ask people to do that which we are unwilling to do. We lead, but we also participate. We are not just church leaders, we are members of the body, serving, giving, crews, growth track. The fundamental parts of our organization are championed by the team wholeheartedly. This is who we are. We are the church, think, be, do. So we take this thing personally. Listen to me. I heard one time a leader say, you can't take people to a place you've never been. I disagree. You can take people to a place you've never been, but you have to be willing to go.
Wow.
That's good.
So you can't take someone to a place that you're not willing to go. I can't go somewhere in the spirit with you that I myself am not willing to dive in with you. I can't teach servant leadership if I'm not willing to be a servant leader.
Yeah. Come on.
Like you can't, all your evangelism campaigns and here we got a brand new series called Win Your Friends to Jesus. It does not matter, pastor, ma'am, whoever you are, sir, if you don't invite the people in your life to church.
Yeah. Great.
So at our church, it's a big deal. We just don't have any prima donnas. We're against it. We just, everyone, whatever we got to do, we're willing to do it. If you're too big to serve, you're too small to lead. If serving is beyond you, leadership is beneath you. We have this in our hearts. This is a really, really big deal. And I really think that ministry, as we say it, taking it personally, it's not a career. Like if you're signing up for ministry, you're like, that sounds like a good job. It won't sustain you. It's not a career, it's a calling that you have to take personally and be attached to it. Two of my greatest frustrations, this is just pet peeve time, and I can't say this in the main session, but you're real leaders and you're here giving up your lunch for Jesus, you're fasting, some of you. But my greatest frustration, pastors who don't go to worship leaders who don't sit in the sermon. Like, come on, like you can't, like, what are we doing? We're one team. We're one team. One of the things that I'll give you an example. Our church started with these things called crews. Crews are our small groups, just maybe a cooler name, I don't know. But our small groups, the way that they work is they happen every other week, and they happen on seasons. I'm gonna save some time to talk to you about seasons here in a moment, but they happen every other week. So in a season, which is a 3-month window, they happen probably 6 to 7 times in one season. We make a really big deal about them. There's a structure attached to building our crews. You've got 5 different roles just to start a crew. You've got 2 crew leaders, 2 co-leaders, a cultivator, somebody who's supposed to bring the vibe to it. You've got a calculator, somebody who's in charge of the administrative side of it. So just right there alone, it's 2, 4, 6 different people. We call it the building blocks of a crew. But listen, every person on our staff and every person who's in a key role in leadership is in a crew. They're not even considered to be a staff member if they're not. Most of them are leading a crew, let alone definitely in a crew. Why? Because we don't want a church that has small groups. We want to be a church of small groups. And so we take it personally. Number 3, I want you to write this one down. This one's really good. I like this one. Number 3 is work together. Everyone say work together.
Work together.
Say it, work together.
Work together.
All right, watch this. This is good as it comes up. Where am I leveraging the talents and skills of those outside my primary team? I'm not too proud to ask for help, and I'm not too busy to be of help. I will inspect what I expect. Collaboration is valued in all aspects of ministry. There are no one-man bands at VOUS Church. God is honored in our unity. We seek to honor God by our collaboration in every aspect of his church. I just think about, the church, the scriptures are so clear that it's the body of Christ, that we have different members working together. Yet once again, I think that we as leaders, we must create systems and processes to ensure that we're creating cultures and environments that people are easily working together. And there's these moments that we come in and I've got weaknesses. In fact, when you come onto our staff, there's always a little senior pastor speech I give to everyone. And I always say, hey, you're coming onto staff and you should know that I'm very aware of all of your strengths. I'm very aware that you are better than me in a lot of categories in leadership. You're smarter than me, you're stronger than me. That's another message. Can you lead people that are stronger than you, smarter than you, better than you? If you want to do something great, you got to learn. But I always say, being on our team, you're gonna know all about my weaknesses. I have a lot of them. I have more weaknesses than I do strengths. In fact, I might have one little tiny strength, okay? Maybe there's a little strength. And what your job is to make much out of my one little tiny strength, and you're here to cover all my weaknesses. We're working together. I don't need you to remind me of my weaknesses. I need you to realize that I've empowered you, that we're working together to cover my weaknesses, make much out of my strengths. But it's not just me, it's our teams cohesively together, making sure that we are doing that and that we're working together in every season. Do you believe that today? Yeah. Come on, somebody. I like this. All right. I like this. Number 4, I want to get into a couple more of these. Number 4. Replace yourself. Replace yourself. This is absolutely vital. Who am I empowering today? It's not just about getting the job done. It's about involving as many people as you can. If you replace yourself, you'll always have a place. Leaders who attract leaders are the leaders you can't afford to lose. You can't fill anyone's cup, but you can empty yours. If you aren't bringing someone along and teaching them how to do what you are doing, you aren't leading. We aren't doers, we are leaders. We are intentionally creating and communicating a pathway of growth and purpose for others. So this is leadership, by the way, that you would replace yourself. What happens to us is that we become insecure and we operate in fear and we're afraid if I replace myself, well, then I'm out of a job. But it's actually the opposite. The more you replace yourself, the more the fact of the matter is that you become an asset to the organization that you can't ever lose. Your job is to pour yourself out. I can't fill any of our staff's cup, but I am responsible for constantly pouring myself out and training and giving everything I have to people. It's funny, I was talking to, you hear people sometimes like, oh man, but here's my deal. This is just called a scarcity mindset. This is called a mindset of fear. What happens if I train people and they leave me? Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, what if you don't train them and they stay with you forever? I don't want to get to 60 with a bunch of people that don't know how to do nothing. I want to give everything that I'm learning along the way, that I'm processing out loud, and then I'm transferring and replacing everything that I have in myself. But once again, I think we try to systematically do this. I'm gonna talk to Adrian here for a second because Adrian oversees our iTech location. Adrian has a background in organizational leadership. Him and his wife, Michelle, who's up there, they helped us plant the church as well. And just a couple months ago, he actually came onto our staff and is leading in a really, really incredible way, helping a lot of us. But Adrian, talk just for a minute on this because I think people are going, oh, cool, I wanna replace myself, but what are ways, maybe from a church or an organization, that we can be doing that practically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was talking to Beth from Trinity Harlem about this just earlier. I think what's really important is language. So it's information, but it's also the application, right? So those two things lead to the transformation.
Hello.
So language that we use on team is that we recruit, we resource, and then we release out. But then how do you systematically build that into what you do? So something we do as part of a staff is we would do something called an off-month meeting. So our church, we'll talk about it in a second, but our church, we work on a seasonal calendar. So the season lasts for 3 months. In that 4th month would be an off month. And we would use that time to bring in different team leaders and talk to them about their team and the health of their team. One of the things we just implemented, which is pretty cool, is we asked every single team to bring in 5 high potential leaders. So we provided a criteria. We said, hey, a high potential leader at VOUS Church meets these 4 items. Bring in 5 people that meet those 4 items, and we'll talk through those individuals and talk through how we're resourcing them and how in the next season we're gonna release them out. So what we're trying to equip our team leaders with is some systematic ways of bringing in, identifying people, but then telling them what the next steps are and releasing them out. And one thing that we're trying to coach our leaders on doing is, again, I think language is important, but I also think the application of it is important too. So oftentimes we're saying we want to resource, but then we want to release. Well, how do you systematically do that? Well, one thing that we're teaching operationally is show, tell, observe, verify. So I want to show you how to do what it is that I need you to do. Then I'm going to tell you how to do what it is that I need you to do. I'm going to observe you doing it, and then I'm going to verify that you're doing it correctly. So it's about creating repetition, about observing the behavior, and then about reinforcing it by making sure that doing it the right way.
It's beautiful. I think what I love about it too is just even trying to get people to think that way. Like as I'm doing life, like who's behind me? You know, as a leader, I think Brian Houston one time told me, he's like, whenever I'm looking at somebody, I'm always looking through that person. Meaning who's behind them? And it's just always stuck with me when I'm looking at people, who's behind them? Because their talent is one thing, but leadership is more than talent. Leadership is about going, I'm going to transfer all that God has given me to the next generation. I love what Brooke was just talking about, that like there's generations. The church is full of generations. And you don't want to just have an organization, whether you have a business or whatnot, that just exists for one lifetime. You want to do something great. You want to pass it on. You want a successor. You want people to come behind you. And I've learned that more and more as we get out of the way and replace ourselves, things get stronger and healthier. And you do an incredible job. I love listening to you talk on that stuff. Number 5, this is probably my favorite one, talking to this room right now. Number 5 is stay fit. Everyone say stay fit. Stay fit. How am I taking care of myself spiritually, physically, relationally, financially, and emotionally? We take responsibility for our own health. No excuses. Nobody owes me anything. Jesus gave me everything. Our personal lives come to work with us. Your marriage, body, frustrations come to work with you. I can make a personal decision that negatively impacts the organization and my coworkers. Our attitude is not dictated by the weather. We carry our own weather. We choose to be here. That's a key word. No one made me do this. I'm choosing this every single day. I don't have to be here because Rich told me I have to be here. God called me to this thing. We are thankful for our community. I've learned that the enemy, all he has to do is get to remove gratitude from your heart, and that's where he traps you. Like in marriages, by the way, like every affair, it doesn't start with an illicit relationship. It starts with a little seed of ungratefulness. It's hard for me to go get in an affair when I'm just thankful for Don Cherie. It's hard for me to be upset with Jesus if I'm just constantly thanking Jesus. Why? Because as I get thankful, I get joyful. And as I get joyful, I get strong, according to Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So how do I get through tough seasons when I feel like the world's coming at me? I remember who God is. I get thankful for him, and joy rises up. And so staying fit is vital. And I wish people would have talked to me about this a whole lot earlier when I was younger, but that's your responsibility. You know that nobody else can have a prayer life for you? Nobody, one day, hopefully they'll come up with an app for this, but nobody can go to the gym for you. Like nobody can get your body into shape. This might sound funny, but I'm actually really serious about it. Like I was talking to a young church planter not too long ago, and he goes, all right, Rich, what's some of your best advice for me right now as I'm about to plant this church? I said, you need to enjoy the journey, and you honestly right now, you need to lose about 25 pounds. He was like he thought I was gonna say something spiritual, like, you know, I was like, no, it's true. Like the way you're taking care of your body right now is you're gonna find yourself under so much more attack because your body physically just doesn't feel good. And all of the spiritual pressure that's coming your way, you don't need anything else to get in the way. I think the body of Christ has to rise up and understand that not everything is always a supernatural problem, but rather some things are a natural problem. There is a correlation, but we must war in the supernatural, but we must take care of ourselves in the natural. So people always ask me, Rich, how do you balance your life? I don't. In fact, don't ask that question in a minute. Our staff, as we have people come in and talk, I've told them, do not ask another leader again how you balance your life. Because you don't. Life is not about balance, it's about rhythm. Do you think Jesus was balanced? Foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Joker roamed the earth for 3 years with 12 misfits. No house, no home, no wife. This was a radical charge, yet he defined the rhythm of his life. And I'm not saying that you should be unhealthy. No, it's actually the opposite. I think that you'll discover health when you are actually in a place that you can figure out what your rhythm is for right now where you are. We always say this, you have to define your season so you can determine your rhythm. So the way I look at my life is I'm looking at my life through seasons. Like a big season just changed for me. I have a 4-month son. Like so now I'm evaluating from that lens. So that which I used to do 4 months ago, there's some things that I'm saying no to now. There's some things I'm saying yes to. How many of you know that having a 14-year-old son is probably different from having a 4-month-old son? And what happens to a lot of us in this room is a lot of you guys are grading yourself on a wrong scale. And you have to learn in leadership how to diversify your effort. You can't get an A in every category. So inhale, exhale, and diversify your effort. Define the season so you can determine what your rhythm is. What is your target? What is a win? You know, as a church, you can't do everything. You can't solve every problem. I can't take care of every social injustice. I can't have a prophetic ministry and a miracle working ministry. I can't feed the hungry and get people out of sex trafficking. I can over time, but if I want to get there, I got to focus my efforts, and I must know my season so I can create a healthy rhythm. Where do you want to win? Everywhere. Well, you can't win everywhere. Some days I'm putting my effort into my marriage more than others. Other days I'm going, my church needs all of me right now. And it's a dance. But balance, it's a rhythm. And rhythms come and rhythms change. And there's a vibe to it. And so once again, this starts with us personally, but collectively as a church, we try to put our church onto a rhythm. And right now the rhythm we have is working for us, but it could adjust. And Luke Berry's up here. Luke is incredible. Luke and his wife Fran. Is Fran in this room by any chance? Francesca Berry is in here. One of my favorite people in the entire world. Luke and Fran, some of our dearest friends, just people that, you know, we walked through some stuff together, and so grateful for them, but they lead in so many different levels. Luke is over all of our worship, and I think he did a pretty good job with this EP. Can we just thank God for him? I just think it's awesome. Luke is one of the sharpest and clearest communicators. Like, honestly, like his logical brain and his eloquence is always so fun to sit and talk with him on things. But Luke, maybe let's just talk for a second about our seasonal model, because I think this will help some of the church leaders in here. And once again, I don't think we're committed to this method. It could change, right? But right now we have a little bit of a method, which is all about staying fit, which is our 3 seasons. If you could just chat about that.
Yeah, exactly. As you're saying, this is a personal value and something that we all seek to figure out for ourselves. But then speaking organizationally, we want to define a rhythm for ourselves. So one thing before seasons, I want to mention we have weekly rhythm for our staff. We
Yeah, talk about it, tell them.
We've named our days Monday through Sunday, and so we go meeting Monday, tackle Tuesday, wrap up Wednesday, think a lot Thursday, free Friday, semi-slow Saturday, and slam Sunday.
Hello.
And
Make the devil pay.
but I like that idea. I like the idea of what you were saying. Some days you're investing more in your marriage, more in church. Like we go, like Slam Sunday defines itself, where we go, Sunday is just, it's Sunday. So it's blocked out from 5 a.m. till midnight.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and sometimes later.
The after party.
Exactly. But yeah, I love it. And then we have this kind of seasonal rhythm calendar as a church. And I remember talking about this in the early days. I don't fully remember how we came to it. But we were talking, I think, about design rhythms and things like that, like how we didn't want to create a look for our church and then lock into it and then wait until we absolutely hate it to move on. And so that was part of it, but then it created this much bigger system. And so really we just operate on 3 seasons a year. Adrian already referenced it. So it's kind of 4 months at a time, but then we have season 1, season 2, season 3. Each season is 3 months with an off month in between. So you can go January, February, March is season 1, April is the off month, and all the way through the year. And the way that that's helped us is that we've been able to place events and certain things. Adrian mentioned off-month meetings in the off months. That's how they got their name. So this is our off season. So we go off-month meeting. Every single team leader has a check-in with a staff member that oversees them. It's about an hour and 15 minutes and often longer. And it starts personal. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And then we get into all very specific measurable questions. We take notes, we submit the notes, and we review them. Next season, we look back and go, hey, this is what we're talking about last season. We're talking about this again. What didn't change over the past 3 months? But then we also place with crews, we take the off months off of crew. And so it gives our crew leaders a month to rest. And then we come back. And we just find that we're refreshed. We have greater energy and we're excited. It builds kind of anticipation as we take a month off. Stopping and restarting is actually really powerful with different things. Just because something's working doesn't mean you should keep doing it forever. Jeez. So for example, we do this thing called Creative Collective. And last season, we decided we weren't going to do it because the previous season's collective felt a bit challenging, and we were launching a new location during season 1. And so we went in season 1, we won't do collective. And then like Sam said, we'll evaluate. So the season ended, and we said, hey, we lost some of the real benefits of collective. We're glad we got the break, but we're going to bring it back in season 2. And so it just helps us to make those kinds of decisions. We place VOU Girl. We know there's certain events that happen. VOU Girl, Creative Collective, Crew Catch-Up, Crew Coaching. We know where they fall throughout the year because of our seasonal model. And then it also helps with all of our design, staging, environments. That stuff shifts seasonally. And so we've got a whole season to prepare, and we know those deadlines of when that stuff changes.
It's beautiful. Great job. I love that. It's good stuff. Number six is remain flexible. Remain flexible. How do I manage the tension triggered by new ideas, innovation, and change? God gives you the what before he gives you the how. We are not intimidated by a big vision. We run towards God dreams and put our faith in action. Everyone is up for change until something changes. Change brings tension, and in order to be flexible, you have to constantly stretch. We embrace the stretch and the tension that change brings. We are not defensive or protective. We are called to the house, not a room. We are committed to the big picture. I love this idea because being flexible, if you're gonna live in a big world, and if you're gonna live in a world that's growing, that means you have to live in a world that's constantly changing. And so you wonder, okay, well, just the basic idea of being flexible. I did a big stint in the fall of yoga. I am going back. Don't judge me for quitting, but I am going back. Hot yoga, and I say Jesus the whole time while I'm there if you're upset about that. So anyways, but what's wild, right, is that the only way that you become flexible is by stretching. And stretching, if I'm being honest, like for me, because I'm not very flexible, it hurts, there's pain, it's out of my comfort zone. Yet the more that I stretch, the more that I become flexible. Just the truth of the matter is that if you're not being stretched, you won't remain flexible. Right. Like this is important because this is a commitment that you must put yourself under the pressure. Like I'm actually not trying to build a world that I can just be comfortable in. I'm actually, that's not my goal. Like I just can't wait till I don't have to work anymore. That's not what the scripture says. Jesus said the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, pray to the Lord of the harvest that he might send out workers. What it tells me is this, is that the recipe for a revival is always prayer and work. So there's not coming a day that I won't work, but there is coming a day that I will become more and more flexible, that I can change quicker and I can adjust and I can pivot to what God is speaking to me. I wanna be a leader that's in a big, growing, ever-evolving world, and the only way that I'll remain flexible to listen to his voice and to adjust is if I continually stretch. So if you're feeling stretched today, I wouldn't run from that, I would lean into that. If you have a leader that at times confronts you and you feel a bit annoyed, every time you get annoyed, you get better. If you got a leader who's on you for being late to work, hey, you were late, this guy's on me. No. He's stretching you. Yeah. She's stretching you. Now, I'm thinking about Jerry Del Vento up here. She's up here. Jerry and Nick's here on the front row. Once again, core couple who helped us launch the church. The church before that they were there for 15 years. These are faithful, committed, loyal people, lay people in the church. And about a year before we even announced, God started speaking to them, and they didn't even know we had a church in our heart. And Nick came and met me in my office and just said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but God's speaking to me, and I think I'm supposed to leave where I'm at, which is wild because I've been there for 15 years and I love those people, but we're supposed to just come and hang out with you in DC. And I was like, that's crazy because we're about to announce that we're gonna start this church and we would love for you to come, And we wept and we got inhalers out, we're crying. But Jerry, we kind of call her like Project Mom in our house because like she just is, if there's a project, Jerry's a part of it. But I think when I'm thinking about Reflexible, what I love about Jerry is that Jerry started VOUS Kids. Yeah. Jamila's up here, she's part of VOUS Kids. And yeah, come on, let's give it up for VOUS Kids. By the way, we have a kids conference next year. I like that. Parents, bring the whole tribe. Bring the whole tribe. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Like, Rich, we get it, you know the Bible. Okay, so anyways, Jerry, you started I kind of asked you, you'd never really even done kids. I never heard you hey, I'm dying to do kids ministry. But I was kind of like, hey, I need you to do kids ministry. And you sort of leaned into that. And then sort of one day, we needed you to go into the creative space and you just sort of quickly just pivoted. Maybe just I don't know, teach us. Why were you willing to do all that
I think
stuff?
one of the first times that I got asked to help with kids, I was we were in the launch team. We had a launch team before we started the church. And I was one of the first moms, So my daughter was 6 months old and I'm there in meetings with her, holding her. So it just felt right. Hey, can you help us start a children's ministry? So I was absolutely, let's do this, But I really didn't have much knowledge with kids or anything. I was a first-time mom, didn't really had any previous training in kids. So I kind of helped start something. And it's like you said, where I see our church as one big house, many rooms. And I was called at that moment for that specific season to kids, VOUS Kids, to help start something. And really, that's always been our lives' desire. At this season in our lives, it was to help someone start something, and that was to help Pastor Rich in DC to start VOUS Church. And the moment it was presented, help start VOUS Kids, and I was like, let's do it. And with the right people around me, we kind of started doing this, and we kind of started shaping what it all looked like, and worked heart and soul for 2 years, and gave it all I had, and brought people along in the journey. But one thing that you've taught me, I think it's really important for me, that it was always attach people to the vision, never to yourself, So it's if you leave, people don't come with you. They stay and they're attached to the mission and to the vision. So that's really what I did, I literally just heart and soul, incredible leaders like Jamila and Dante, people that came around smarter than I was at that moment, and just really pour heart and soul into VOUS Kids and attach them to the mission, attach them to the vision of VOUS Kids and to the church. And honestly, VOUS Kids is seeing about, right now, it has an incredible leader, Brianna Graham, and it has seeing about 400 kids, on a Sunday. It's really wild. It's a small church going on, but it is all about really, I went into
big
a
church.
different...
kind of a big church.
It's really about I went into a different room of the house, but really all these incredible leaders that I did life with for 2 years, heart and soul in there, stayed there, making it better, and somebody else is stepping with fresh eyes to look at this space, to innovate it, to make it better, because that's part of our goal. And they're going to levels that we hadn't been, and that's really what it's all about. So for me, it's just about remaining flexible. It's like the ability of a leader to be able to bend without breaking, to adapt to different environments, no matter the season and no matter the rhythm. It's just being flexible. It hurts at times, it's uncomfortable, but really that is what leadership is all about.
So good, so good, so good. I love it. Number seven, we're at the finish line. Number 7, this is a good one. We say it this way: celebrate constantly. Celebrate constantly. Am I finding something or someone to celebrate today? Gratitude brings joy, and joy brings strength. We make it an organizational focus to celebrate the journey every step of the way. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're committed to learn, to laugh, and have a sense of humor. Celebrate others' success. We like to party, in parentheses, with a purpose. At VOUS, we make hard work look fun. We make hard work look fun. I think this is so vital, because I think this whole thing called church, especially in 2018, especially a lot of you who are church planters, there's just no getting around the fact that, I don't care what you want to say, nobody really feels called to wake up at 5:45 on Memorial Day weekend in a driving rainstorm and load into an old middle school gym, pipe and drape, and say, let's start a kids ministry. But we're called to it and we're committed to it. And so if we're gonna do it, we might as well have some fun while we do it. And so your culture will either happen by default or by design. So we've designed that we're going to celebrate constantly every step of the way. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Like the other day, it's a joke if you didn't get it. Like someone wrote on my wall, like, Rich, you're kind of being braggadocious about your EP going to #1. I was like, I'm actually being the opposite. Our EP went to #1 for like 12 hours because all of our church at one point started streaming it. But I think it's cool to be proud of what you're doing. If you're not proud of what you're doing, why would anybody else want to join you? So it's not like we think we're cool. It's like the opposite. We're just gonna go, we're gonna celebrate every step of the way, making much out of every moment. And so once again, practically how we do this is like, we talk at leadership, like leaders, this is your goal. Get the focus off of you. Ooh. You wanna take a handle like right now, Pastor? Like you wanna build something, you wanna get something going, get the focus off of you. You get people up on the stage. I could go through every person up on the stage. This is Jo Kay. She's incredible. She's a doctor. She's amazing. She leads our VOUS Care program. She serves Tuesday night. She leads a crew as well. Tuesday nights, she has all sorts of teams underneath her: financial peace courses, marriage counseling. She's got Free to Grow, which is an emotional recovery program. She speaks in our church. She's on the front row, whether she's rostered on the platform or not, going, amen, that's good. And she's a model at the same time. I mean, just, this girl's amazing. I'm just going like, this is Jamila. I've known Jamila for like 8 years now, and she's thriving in our church right now. She's leading a lot of our team. She's in our kids department, but she leads like team rallies. And I've known her forever, but now she just turned out that she's a preacher, and everyone's like, oh my God, Pastor Jamila, you changed my life, you know? Michelle Molina, same thing. Michelle came. By the way, Michelle used to be a Heat dancer. Rich, not here. Don't talk about that. It's private. It's like, moving on, like that's all I say about you, you know? But like Michelle, like she's so gifted. Would you believe this? Michelle, her husband leads our location. She still oversees the welcome team at a location, holding signs. She's out there every Sunday. We're talking about 2.5 years of doing this. Dante, this guy is like just one of the great men in our house who works 5 days a week. And then I keep telling him, you can only go to either a morning block or an evening block of services. And he's rebellious. He gets there at 5:45 and he loads out all the way till 11 p.m. All I'm trying to get in your spirit is that it's not hard to find something to celebrate. If you'll just people are not coming to our church because I'm savvy and smart. It's just not the truth. They're coming because they're falling in love with this culture and this community of people that are sacrificially. So if I have the microphone the most, that means I should be celebrating others the most. That's our role. That's our role. And so like practical ways, how do we do it? Like would you believe this? Every block of our services, so morning or night, we have a team rally. People ask us all the time, what is your team rally? All our team rally is this, is that all of our teams, aside from parking and kids, is that probably right? And welcome, yeah, so welcome and parking and kids, because they have to be in places, but is it how many minutes before? 35 minutes, 25 minutes? Help me, Luke, somebody. 35 minutes before any one of our blocks of services, we have 2 leaders come out, and they go over one of our church's 7 values, and they come out, and it's just a moment to encourage, so everyone gathers at the front. The worship team is behind them. Lots of times we'll have a brand new worship leader who's never led a song before, and that's where they start, is in team rally. And all it is a 6-minute moment, and they walk out, and we put new people on the platform, and they just encourage the team. They speak life in the team. They go through one of our church values, and they just remind everyone why we do what we do and who we are. We give a couple key inside announcements, and then we always pray big, and we worship, and we just set the atmosphere. You could do that tomorrow. It's very, very easy. It gets everyone on the mission, gets everyone excited. And then this is what we do. Every service that we do, every service that I preach, at one point I was preaching 6 services on a Sunday, 9, 15, 11, 1, 4, 6, and 8. And every one of those services, I still would join in the back what we call a platform huddle that happens 20 minutes before the service. This has been vital to our church. And I look people in the eye and I open the curtain behind of what all this stuff is about church mechanics. And we just speak publicly. There's people that are brand new serving on the backstage of production teams. They don't even know me. And I'm just talking to people as if I'm like, hey, you. They're like, I didn't know this was gonna happen today. And I just start telling them things that I'm hoping is gonna happen in that meeting. We just start going into making things better. If the last service, someone was off key, or if the last service, somebody did something silly, we just talk about it right there. But we always look at people and say, you were awesome. We do the thing called game ball. This is really easy. I stole this from Chad Veach. I give a game ball to someone outside of my core team, and I speak life over them. Once they get the game ball, they then have to speak life over somebody else opposite of their core team. And we'll get like 4 or 5 game balls going around. And I'm like, all right, we have to actually go to church, We'll worship back there. If it's someone's birthday, we'll say happy birthday. If someone just got married, we'll lay our hands right before church and say, let's pray for this couple. And so it's just a huddle. It's a practical thing. And then one of our key things that we did from day one is that from day one, the church started in my house. And so to this day, even to this day, almost every other Sunday night, we have a thing called family dinner. That after loadout's done, I think now it starts around 10 p.m. at night. I know it's crazy, but we have a conviction about it. 65 to 80 people now I have a home, I used to have a little apartment, show up in our house, they gather, and we just throw a party. Like, it's not really like spiritual, it's just a party. Good food, cheap wine, it's a great party. And we just we celebrate, and somewhere in the night, we stop the music, we pause, and we start to testify and tell the stories of what God did in that day. Yeah. And I haven't ever gone to a family dinner where I didn't hear miracle stories from all sorts of different places as people championed and spoke about what they did, some of which I don't even know their names, and they just start to brag on people. Yeah. You say, Rich, where did you get this idea? Well, I got it from the Bible. My only scripture I wanted to give you today is 1 Thessalonians. Paul said this, just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you. Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Wow. And real leadership in 2018, real church leadership isn't just about preaching the Bible. It's about opening up your life to people. And it's about crying with people, and it's about celebrating with people, and it's about championing people, and it's about being there for people. I don't want to just preach the gospel. I want to share my life.